In this video, I'll be breaking down why the Before trilogy is one of the few perfect trilogies in film. I'll discuss how the natural progression in these movies is a major reason as to why they're so great, and I'll also be diving deeper into why art imitating life creates beautiful movies. This is the second video of 3 breaking down why I love the Before trilogy by Richard Linklater. So if you have not seen the first video, I'd suggest that you watch it, then come back to this video for more context and enjoyment. This is why I love Before Sunset. As I talked about in the Before Sunrise video, the visuals in this trilogy are beautiful, and Before Sunset is no exception to that. I had the opportunity to rewatch this film in cinema, so the visuals really stood out to me. And the first thing that I noticed was visual distance being used brilliantly yet again. By visual distance, I mean how distance between characters tells the story of how they're feeling. As they get visually closer, they get emotionally closer. And this is a general rule that is set up in the first film. And since it's set up so early, when they play on that rule in the third and second film, it creates a subliminal impact that helps tell the story of their relationship very effectively. So as I said, visual distance is used very differently in each film, and it conveys a new message each time. In the first film, it's used to show their love growing, but in Before Sunset, it's used in a very interesting way. It is used now to not show their love growing, but to show them becoming used to each other again and figuring out the people they have become. And it also solidifies that they are still in love. And so the best example of this is how Celine and Jesse slip right back into the same stride that they had in the first film. The use of visual distance between them, sitting opposite each other, takes a new meaning. Before Sunrise uses tables as a tool to emphasize their distance and emotional distance, at least in the beginning. And by the time they sit opposite each other, visual distance is used to show growth and comfortability. But in the beginning of Before Sunset, when they go to the cafe and sit opposite each other, it is used to emphasize the fact that they are still in a stage of comfortability. Their visual and emotional closeness has stayed the exact same as we left off in the first film. So what does this visually show us? A few things, but most obviously, that they are still just as in love as the first film. Visual distance no longer means that they are emotionally apart or visually, but it now means no matter how separated they are in the frame or the story, they still love each other. I've always felt as though that you can simply pause your television at any point during Before Sunrise and it would look like a painting straight from the Renaissance. And although the cinematography in the Before trilogy may seem very alike, I think they're actually very distinct and different, and this leans into the talking point of natural progression in this trilogy. As I said before in the very first video on Before Sunrise, each film's tone changes. The first movie is very romantic and filmic with hints of realism. This film, the second one, still has strong romantic tones but is slightly more grounded in reality. And by the time you watch the third installment of the trilogy, it's drowned in realism and only ever has hints of romanticized or filmic tones. And yes, I can just talk about this as if it's fact, but what actually makes these changes in tone throughout the films? Well, to illustrate my point, I want to play a game with you. The rules are simple. I'm going to show you a frame from each film and you're going to tell me which film it's from. Okay, here's the first frame. Now the second one. Alright, and finally, the last frame. Leave a comment below how you did, but I'm willing to bet that you did pretty well. In fact, I'm willing to bet that you got all of them right. Now you could say that you just recognised a building or the terrain from each film, and even if that is one of the reasons why you could tell what film it was, I bet you it wasn't the only reason you could tell. There's something very different about each film. It's not digital versus film, at least not for the first two. And it's not drastic lens swaps or colour grades. It's subtle things that we can't even really comprehend. Slightly different way of shooting the film. More handheld, less handheld. I don't even really know what it is, but they're different. And this is definitely an intentional choice from Richard Linklater and the cinematographer. So subtle yet distinct looks for each movie is one of the very smart ways Richard Linklater pushes along natural progression in the Before trilogy. And overall, the cinematography, visual storytelling and beautiful locations is just some of the reasons why I love Before Sunset. Music is often a quintessential part of film, and at first glance it seems that it may take a backseat in Before Sunset, but if you look a bit closer, or listen closer should I say, it's actually a major player. It's simple and understated, but that's why, when music is prominent in a scene, it packs a much stronger punch than if it was often used. I think my favourite use of music is at the end. This use of music says one thing and one thing only. Jesse is not going anywhere. Pretty much all the music in this film is actually sang by Julie Delpy, the actress who plays Celine. So maybe the songs she sings in the beginning and the middle of the movie were the other songs that she was referring to when she told Jesse she had 3 songs to play. Oceans Apart is a great tune to open the film to. The lyrics are reminiscent of the first film's plot. It also shares similarities with the classical or baroque music used in the opening of the first film, again advancing the natural progression of the trilogy. The music is subtle in this film, but when it is used, it really tells the story, and that's one of the reasons why I love this film so much. Now, to dive deeper into the topic of art imitating life, it's an interesting thing, because there is a question: does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? I believe that it's both. I think artists took inspiration from the real world around them, and then embellished it, romanticizing it. But then people looked at this art, and they were inspired, so they began to implement these things that they saw into their lives. For example, have you ever watched a film and really liked the main character so much so that you took personality traits for them, or you started to dress like them, or talk like them? I think everyone has. I know so. This happens so much that memes have come from it, like the Sigma Bale meme or the Literally Me memes. So I don't think art imitates life, or vice versa. I think they inspire each other. So how in this case does art imitate life? Well, it's a sad story. The director Richard Linklater met a woman called Amy Lampart while spending time in Philadelphia. They walked around, they talked about art, life, politics. They did exchange numbers, unlike the movie, but over time they did just lose connection. And so he went to make Before Sunrise in hopes that she would come to the premiere, but she never did. Then he made Before Sunset, she never came. And then he found out the reason why she never showed to either of the premieres. She died in a motorcycle accident a month Before Sunrise started to shoot. Linklater said in interviews that she echoes through the movies. So although the story is actually quite depressing, it inspired one of the best romance films and trilogies. And so from art imitating Linklater's life, his art now inspires us to take inspiration from that art. And so the cycle goes on. Art imitating life, then life imitates art. The story of Before Sunset is the perfect story for a sequel. It does some great things, like how first of all, it answers all the questions that one might have after watching the first movie, and it does that in a very clever way. By the exposition needed to tell these things, being from an interviewer, makes it so that the exposition feels warranted and it fits well in the Before films. It also helps establish that Jesse is now an acclaimed writer, which makes perfect sense for his character. The film's exposition is done so well, through the natural style of dialogue, also through their acting, and the concept that made the first film so good, of time limiting the film, was done so well. Instead of Celine having to get a train this time in the morning, Jesse needs to catch a flight. It makes sense in the realm of this new story, and it doesn't feel forced. But also the reason it worked so well was the subversion of this concept. Unlike the first film, they don't separate in the end. And you get the feeling from the start that Jesse was always going to miss his flight. Maybe he never intended to go on the plane after he saw Celine in the corner of the bookshop. This really is a great example of the writing technique where your ending needs to be surprising yet expected. Before Sunset is a great sequel and is really well written. But a lot of trilogies have great sequels, like The Godfather Part 2, Spider-Man 2, or Back to the Future 2. But it's about the third film that determines whether it will go down in history as one of the world's best trilogies. So stay tuned for the next video on Before Midnight and how that film completed Before Sunrise's perfect trilogy. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.